Well, moving to business now, and we'll focus on what's at stake in that election in South Africa this Wednesday, especially with regards to the economy. Charles Pellegrin joins me on set. We're going to talk especially about the discontent over the ruling ANC's economic management since it took power in 1994.
That's right, Karis. The country finds itself really in dire economic straits today. Poverty and unemployment tend to be the first items people point to, but something else exemplifies this even more: the rolling power blackouts that have hampered daily life in the country for the past few years. This load shedding of electricity is a way to manage an out-of-date coal-powered grid run by troubled state utility Eskom, and this has hurt economic activity, with businesses either having to pay for alternate supplies of power or unable to operate for large parts of the day. Last year, the central bank estimated that power cuts cost the economy 900 million rand a day, about 45 million euros. Blackouts have eased in the days ahead of the vote, at least 50 days without interruption, but opposition parties believe the ANC is putting pressure on Eskom to burn more diesel to keep the lights on. Eskom, meanwhile, under new leadership, says the crisis is being fixed and has not received any pressure from the government. Either way, voters hold the ANC responsible for past mismanagement and will head to the polls with that in mind.
Well, another major talking point then in the campaign is South Africa's unemployment rate, Charles.
That rate stands at 32.9% and even close to 60% for those between 15 and 24 years old. And joblessness is also disproportionately affecting the country's black population. Well, France 24 spoke to South African economist Azar Jammine about this issue. He gave us an idea as to what's behind this extremely high level of unemployment. One issue is education, and the other is the structure of the economy.
There are two major contributors here. The first is the educational system is just not producing the kind of skills that the economy needs, especially in the areas of mathematics and science, as well as literacy. The majority of South Africans are falling behind. Fortunately, there's a small segment of around 15% where schooling is excellent. The second big problem is the fact that the South African government has just not done anything to change the structure of the economy from one in which large monopoly-sized companies tend to dominate, and small business, which thrives through many emerging markets, is just not as does not thrive as much in South Africa. Small business takes strain, and much of the economic power is in the hands of the government, big business, and a very strong labor movement. And small businesses who try to work against just to employ people at whatever wage possible just don't manage to see the light of day.
Well, I guess unsurprisingly then, there hasn't been enough growth to create jobs to begin with.
Looking at the past 8 years, 6 of which have been under the rule of Cyril Ramaphosa, you can see that South Africa's growth rate has been fairly stagnant. Over the past decade, the economy has grown on average to the tune of 0.8% per year. You can see there with the highest point of growth at 5.2% in 2021, obviously skewed by the pandemic in 2020. But according to a survey of emerging market experts by Bloomberg Economics, the country could see something of an economic turnaround so long as Ramaphosa stays in power. They forecast growth reaching 1.1% this year and advancing further in 2025. Under his leadership, the ANC has pursued job creation via public works programs and growth through industrialization. They've also sought to broaden economic ownership to larger swaths of the population.
And Charles, what if the ANC loses its grip on power after the election?
Then it'll really depend on the kind of coalition we'll see. If the NC's score is above 40%, they'll be able to partner with a political party not too dissimilar from itself, thus without too much change to policy. That party, like the Inkatha Freedom Party, for instance, below 40%, and it'll have to reach out to bigger political movements. The Democratic Alliance, on one hand, which is more pro-business and advocates for fiscal discipline, so an easier fit for the ANC, and for foreign investors worried about the economic situation. or the economic freedom fighters led by Julius Malema, who is pushing for land reform policies, including expropriation without compensation and this nationalization of the central bank, as well as some mines. This scenario is what worries investors the most, although there is significant popular support for such a shift, considering the persistent inequalities in the country.
All right, Charles, thank you very much for breaking that down for us as South Africa heads to the polls this Wednesday.